everyone, John Henry here, slingshotfutures.com. Today we're going to be talking about something other than the markets, something that while we're in the room, in the live trade room, we cover quite often, and in general I think everybody should really consider if they haven't done so already, and that's multiple sources of income. Now, when it comes to multiple sources of income, what do I mean? No, I don't mean, having 3 different jobs. What I mean is you have your primary source of income, which could be any number of things, a job, a career, trading, whatever. And then you have side incomes that are compensating for if one falls through or one doesn't really perform very well, etc. So what I mean by that is if we look at this as a whole, let me get my clock out of the way here. There we go. So when we look at this as a whole, you have your primary source of income, right? This is your primary source of income. That's going to drive me nuts. Let's try to get that in the middle. Close enough. That's your primary source of income. Now, having secondary, tertiary, etc., having a bunch of extra sources of income, they don't have to be a ton, but they help you along the way, right? This is where a lot of people really fell short when the markets crashed or when the economy fell apart back in 2008. This is all they had. That was their primary source of income. Done, right? Well, the problem was when the economy crashed, that went away. A lot of people got laid off. And now they have nothing else to support them. And then they're going to the unemployment line and they're trying to figure out what the heck am I going to do to make my next payment on my mortgage. So what we need to do is create multiple sources of income. Now, you can do this a lot of different ways, and these are by no means, they might be things that I do, they might not be things that I do, but just in general, some ideas for you to consider. Now, one of them is maybe you want to write a book, right? Maybe you want to become an author. Now, that can seem very, kind of tedious and maybe even a little bit scary. But when you're becoming an author, doing it through something like Amazon Kindle Publishing is very simplistic. There's not a ton that you have to do in terms of getting set up and getting going. And all you have to do is just write your book on your computer in a PDF format and you can upload it to KDP or Kindle Publishing. So that's a really nice way to create a residual income that just keeps going, right? You leave it on the Amazon store and it sells and it just keeps going. Now, the more books you have, the better. Now, I'm not saying just publish a bunch of garbage books. This is something you really want to have to do, or you have to want to do. That came out backward. It's something you have to be writing from as a passion of yours. It could be on trading. It could be on auto mechanics. It could be on weight loss. It could be on any number of things. But just designing and creating a book from scratch is something that a lot of people want to do, but they don't know where to start. Amazon Kindle Publishing is a phenomenal place to start. It doesn't require any money down, and all you have to do is just write a book. It's a residual source of income that could give you, even an extra $20 a month. It could turn into a lot more than that, but it's money that you didn't have. It's an extra source of income. So we're going to call it KDP, that's Kindle Publishing. That is an extra source of income that you could be keeping an eye on. Another thing, go around your house and find all of the garbage stuff that you never use laying around, and you might just find yourself a business, my friend. What am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about eBay, right? Doing some good old shopping, getting rid of the stuff in your house, getting rid of the garbage that you don't need anymore or don't use anymore. It's amazing how much money you can have just lying around that you don't even know is there. It's something that a lot of people probably should do, in all honesty, purging all of the stuff that they have, right? We don't need all this crap. Why not sell it? Make some extra cash. And who knows? Maybe you can go and find some stuff that you could potentially sell long term. Maybe it's a craft item that you want to make or etc., right? These are things you can consider. And speaking of which, if we create a secondary box on this, speaking of crafts, Etsy. Right? You can make an Etsy business, making all kinds of different stuff. Again, this is something you have to love to do, but maybe you're just really awesome at knitting blankets, or maybe you're awesome at making hats, or whatever the craft happens to be. You can sell those things on Etsy for extra income. Yes, it takes time. You're going to have to do them just like everything else. It's not free money, but it's an extra source of income on top of your primary source. That's the important part. Even of an extra couple $100 a month. That's a couple extra $100 you didn't have before. That could pay for a car loan. If you have a car loan, that is something to definitely consider. Now, going a little bit outside of the self-publishing and self-selling and self-crafting and all of this self stuff, What we can do now is we can look at external, we'll call them side hustles, if you will. There are tons of side hustles, okay? There are a lot of them that you can do on the side. If you just got an extra couple hours, you can make an extra couple $100 a week just by going to do something as simple as shopping for groceries, right? Maybe you want to do a personal shopping service like Shipt, as an example. That is another really, really big one that a lot of people do. And you can potentially even replace your primary source of income depending on how good you get, because it's primarily driven off of tips. There are a lot of other things like Shipt where you sign up and you are basically a freelancer. You go out, you shop other people's groceries, you deliver them, and that's it. You get paid and you potentially get a tip. You can make a good little chunk of money on the side if you need some extra cash, or if you just have an extra little bit of free time. This is a really great way to do it, along with all of the other ones. Now, again, when I'm talking about primary source of income and then secondary and external sources, this could come from any number of things. There are things that you could need to do, like Shipt or eBay or Etsy or Kindle Publishing, but they could also be dividends. Right? Maybe you have an external source. You've got dividends coming out from stocks that you own, since we are obviously trading. These are things that you could count as an external source of income that's coming in just by owning a stock, doing a little bit of research, making sure the company is still good, making sure they're not downgrading or anything like that, and just holding on to a dividend portfolio. Again, holding a handful of stocks, holding 100 shares of something, you never know. You could get an extra 30, 40, 50 bucks every quarter. That's money that you didn't have before, and all you had to do was hold the stock. You didn't have to do anything, really. I mean, it took some money up front to buy the shares, but that's really about it. So another type of investment would be a dividend, or anything that gives you a return quarterly or annually, depending on the stock. It keeps going, right? It just keeps going. Now, the cool thing you can do, if with some of these, you may not need the money that time that it came in, right? Dividends are a really good example where if you had a dividend payout, but you don't really need the money, well, what would you rather do? Obviously, you'd probably rather go to the bar and buy some drinks and have some fun. But realistically speaking, we're talking about long-term income. We're talking about something that's going to set you for the rest of your life, or at least for the foreseeable future. What better way to do that with, if you don't need the money at that point in time, reinvest the dividend money. Buy more shares in the company. A lot of brokerages offer free reinvestment. It's called drip investing. Every time you get a dividend payout, you buy more shares. You get a dividend payout, it buys more shares. You can set this up automatically in a lot of different brokerages. Thinkorswim comes to mind right away, because you can literally just go through the list of shares that you own or stocks that you own and set it to reinvest, reinvest, reinvest. And that way it just reinvests it back in, and you don't have to worry about it, right? It's money that's growing for you. Your money is working for you, not the other way around, right? That's the important part. So dividends are another really good source of income if you've got a little extra income that you can spend to buy some shares of something that give you dividends, right? This requires a little bit of extra money on top. The other ones don't really require anything per se. eBay and Etsy, I mean, you have to make something and you have to buy small amounts of inventory, but that's really about it. Right, so that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about multiple sources of income. Having other income sources that are coming in that by themselves may not be that big. If you add all these together and you're doing it really, really part-time, like barely paying attention to it. Kindle, you might make $20 a month publishing a handful of books and not really doing much about it. Not marketing it, not doing anything, just putting it on the marketplace, letting it go. eBay, you can make thousands of dollars if you got a bunch of crap laying around, but in general, you figure an extra couple $100 a month there. Shipt, you can make an extra couple $100 a week if you wanted to dedicate a couple hours to it, or any of the other number of things like Airbnb, renting out your house space, or Uber Eats, right? If you want to deliver food to people, you get tips doing that too, and you can do that in your spare time. Any little spare time job would fit into that category, and it only takes a couple hours a week. Doesn't require any money. All it requires is a car, basically. And then dividends. You need a little bit of money up front, but it's another source of income that you can create going. And you could pay your mortgage with this stuff off of extra income that you really didn't have to do much for. So these are things that you need to think about. If you only have one source of income, or maybe you have one source of income and a small little side one, look at extra things that you can do. Get your hustle on, right? Get that money. That's the point of this, right? We're going through and we're doing all of these things for what? Well, we're trying to rack some cash. We want some free time. We want to be able to spend some time with our families, go on vacations, have some fun, and enjoy life. You can't do that if you don't have extra money coming in, and this is a really good way to do it with, I mean, honestly, minimal effort. It's not hard to do this stuff, and that's something you really need to consider. So, talking about primary sources of income and extra sources of income on top of that, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Adding additional things you can do, an extra couple hours a week to make a good chunk of money that you could then turn around and potentially help pay off your house sooner, or pay your mortgage, or get a new car, or whatever. But it's a way that you can, pad your bank account a little bit. Think about it if you don't have any extra sources of income, because you never know if the market turns and the economy takes a dump. You might just find yourself out of this one, and then you're going to have to rely on something else. I would rather rely on something else than the unemployment line. So that's going to do it for this one. I hope you found it useful. I hope you found it interesting, entertaining, and hopefully something that you can add to your tool belt if you haven't done so already. And hopefully you've already done some of this. But if you haven't, of course, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. I can get those covered for you from there, jbrink@slingshotfutures.com. I hope you had a great trading day today. I hope you have a phenomenal trading week, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks.